Hi, everyone. Welcome to the podcast. We are here today speaking, talk, it's a bittersweet. The last, goodbye to Better Call Saul, goodbye to the Breaking Bad universe. And I brought Chris and Mark together for this sort of this goodbye to the series. And we're recording this the day after the final episode. And, I really don't know what to think. I am conflicted. So let's just be just like Chris. You tell me what to think, and then Mark can tell me what to think, and then maybe I'll know.
Well, you might be able to guess that I'm pretty happy with the finale because, over the last few episodes, you've been asking me and I've been telling you what I hoped to and wanted to see from it. And it ended up giving me, pretty much some version of everything that I hoped for. To give you one example, I told you that I didn't just want to see character, solely character focused flashbacks to the Breaking Bad era. I wanted there to be a plot payoff, and it did deliver us a plot payoff to the what it started with, showing Walt and Jesse basically kidnapping Saul. That was a pretty important plot point. It turned out in the end. But more important than that, the drum that I've been beating throughout this, it's bittersweet. That's the right word. It's bittersweet that this is the last time I'm going to be able to talk about the fatalism of the Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul universe. And I wanted to see the show kind of evolve and become more nuanced than its kind of very pessimistic view of human nature. In Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, most of the time it seems to be telling us some people are just bad to their core. And that's it. It's just life reveals the badness in them. It brings it out, and it's just a story of decline, of moral decline. And kind of from the beginning, that's been the question about Jimmy. Is he good? Is he bad? Is he some of each? Which will he choose? And it seemed to be telling us most of the time that the bad side was going to win, and that's what was most fundamental. Here, I think that it pulled a little reversal, and there was the moment where Chuck, in the flashback, tells him it's never too late to change. And I see that the show is telling us that he took that message to heart, and he did kind of try to step into the time machine and become Jimmy again in the courtroom. So I'm pretty satisfied with it. But that's because it fits better with my morality, probably, than it fits with yours. That's probably why you're less satisfied with it.
Well, I think I disagree with. It's more than that. I disagree. I sort of disagree with your interpretation. But Mark, you just finished like right this minute, didn't you? So
Yeah.
How are you feeling?
Couple things. So one is I know I'm not going to get it, but I am ready for a Better Call Oakley. There was skepticism at the beginning. If you remember, there was skepticism after Breaking Bad that Saul could actually be a protagonist of his own show, and of course it turned out he could be. And so I have faith that Bill Oakley also has hidden depths that we can surface. I'm also very hungry for Cinnabon, which I have not had for 33 years. And I think it might be time to reconnect with my roots in the mall. Well, look, I mean, I made the case last time we talked. I made the case that this is sort of the classic conflict between Jerusalem and Rome, or Christianity and pre-Christian ethics, or the Nietzschean Superman versus the Last Man versus Christian morality. And I'll double down on that, which is we saw basically the classic kind of Christian morality play at the end, including the reach for redemption. And sure enough, he went for it, and of course he did, because he wants to be redeemed. And by the end, at least according to Christian ethics, he was. But once again, it ended kind of the only way that it could, and that it ended up with the fall of the degraded Superman, but nevertheless the Superman.
I mean, both of you say that he was redeemed, and I don't like. What did he do? I mean, he put himself in a supermax prison for life. Okay, he didn't help anybody.
Well, he did. He helped Kim.
No, after getting into trouble, he was it the civil suit thing? Did he get her off the hook?
Yeah, he got her permanently off the hook. That was the thing.
Really?
Oh, he said
I
that.
didn't see that.
No,
it was the aside in his speech.
where he's like, I manipulated her the whole way.
Yeah. She was my victim. She was my puppet.
But she is okay. So they're going to have a hard time convicting her, I suppose. Chris, you're
And
shaking
then they were able to hang him up for this like much better sentence with much better PR. The feds came out much happier.
I don't think that anything Jimmy said is going to get Kim out of losing the civil suit. If Howard's wife pursued.
Oh, the civil suit, you might be right, but certainly he got her off the hook.
Put her in danger for the criminal. It was him who put her in danger for the criminal suit, or supposedly. I mean, she wasn't. There was a, but he, So there wasn't a redemption.
Wasn't that though clearly his motive? Wasn't his motivation clearly in the courtroom? It wasn't it clearly to get her off the hook in some way.
I am struggling with what his motivations were. So that one of them, I think, is he wants to, I think he wants to redeem himself in Kim's eyes, and somehow Kim, he starts getting upset at the point when he hears Kim, confess to everything, and so like he has to show her he's good enough. So there's a thing in Jimmy's life where he's always like obsessed with one person and their approval. So it was Chuck, I think, for most of his life, and now it seems like it's Kim. And I think the lesson is Kim just does something to him. Like, he becomes Saul just because of Kim. He puts himself in a supermax prison for life for Kim. Part of it is, I think I don't know. I think it was sort of, I don't know if it was redemption. I think it was sort of a masochistic, idea of, I think it was some kind of penance or something. You remember the first season, I think one of the early episodes where he this probably wasn't the first season. It was maybe second season or something, where he gets the nice apartment and he's not comfortable there, and then he goes back and sleeps behind the nail salon, and then he finally gets a good night's rest. I think it's sort of like that. It's like the North Carolina prison is like too nice for him, and he's comfortable in this like impossible circumstance where they put him in jail for life. Now, all that being said, it's an extreme psychological compulsion here to do that. But I think the lesson of the show is Jimmy is an extreme guy who does extreme things for, very, idiosyncratic and sort of very personal, based in his personal relationships with other people. It's a simpler story what you're saying, Mark, that he was trying to get Kim off, and that's what was happening. But I didn't see that, and I don't think Chris saw it. Maybe marginally, but I don't think it made a huge difference for her.
Well, when it comes to Kim,
let me give one more interpretation that I'm still struggling with. So there's like 6 interpretations. So maybe this is like really good. Another one is he just wants to hurt Kim as much as possible. He's gonna put himself in a supermax prison for life. She visits him. Kim doesn't look happy at the end. So he got his revenge. I mean, I sort of lean towards that interpretation.
So what I want to ask you about that, Richard, is are you saying that you don't think that the show views it as redemption for him to any degree? Or are you saying that you personally don't think that it counts as redemption?
I don't think the show, unless the show's view is like, it's like a very like Christian and like a, like penance. It's like a very like, it's a sense of justice that he should like suffer for a very long time for what he did. If you call that redemption, I don't know. I struggle. If it's really that, the transformation of Saul Goodman is too extreme. It's too fast. There's no build up to it. He just sort of hears that Kim is gonna, hears that Kim came clean about everything, and then just transforms and does something contradictory to everything else he's ever done in his life. That's maybe more optimistic, as you would say, but it's strange. it's hard, sort of not believable.
Well, I was actually just thinking about the same kind of question. I was wondering if this is too quick to, unpreviewed. He just suddenly breaks good all of a sudden in the courtroom. Like, I confess. Oh, by the way, I also did a bad thing that caused Chuck's suicide. And then Bill's like, that's not even a crime. And Jimmy says, yes, it was. Along with the lines of the penance argument. But I think that there was kind of a preview of this in the last episode at the end. We were talking about it, his undoing when he gives the life alert device back to Marion, even when he doesn't have to. And he does that in kind of a moment of weakness and empathy when she appeals to the Jimmy side of him. And so, like, he didn't have to do it. It was just Jimmy breaking through for a moment and screwing over Saul and Jean, basically. I think that was our preview.
But that was him stepping from the brink of doing something very, very bad. I don't think that's redemption. It's like he was going to do the worst thing. He was going to strangle Carol Burnett, and then he decided that, okay, great. I mean, it wasn't like he was becoming a good guy in that moment.
But he did more than he had to. He did not have to. Like, he could have refrained from strangling her without giving her back the life alert device to call the cops.
He was self-destructive. He was just that was everything from the Jeff stuff to getting caught, getting Carol Burnett to catch him by stupidly talking about the differences in bail between Albuquerque and Omaha, and then giving her the thing back, and then getting caught, and then like putting himself like it just seems like there's just an unraveling here that's a simpler story than a redemption story.
So my conclusion, Richard, is that you hate the Christian redemption arc so much that you refuse to see it even when it's right in front of you. Meaning that, therefore, you must agree with me that fundamentally, this is the degradation of the Superman.
So it makes me. Is Jimmy the super? Jimmy is not. Walter White and Gus Fring, I think, are more Superman characters. I think there is something in
true.
Jimmy which he likes to be at the bottom. He likes to spend 80 hours a week on scams that net him like $1,000. I mean, it's really he could be. He has it in him. He has a charisma and a drive and intelligence to be that Superman. But there was always a self-destructive, a petty, maybe insecure and sort of needy side that stops it. So I think it's just him being like, yeah. So the Walter White scene you could look at it in two ways, where he goes, I loved Walter. I didn't know what that was, by the way. Did you guys remember like what episode that was harkening back to, where him and Walter were in that?
It's when they were in the basement of the Robert Forster character, the vacuum cleaner guy. That's when they were waiting for their respective passages for their new lives.
Man, it's like I never watched Breaking Bad. It's complete. I remember like four things. I remember like literally like five.
They were jammed in. They both panicked and hit the eject button at the same time, and so they both showed up at the vacuum cleaner guy's place at the same time, and he forced them to spend a few days together, quality time.
Wow, that's like hearing about a new show that I've never watched. Okay, that sounds great. I think I want to go back and see that show. Yeah. So here's a question for you then on the Saul or the Jimmy personality. So his life was defined by his junior relationship with his domineering older brother. And of course, the twist I think all along with the older brother was right. The older brother was right about everything all along. Mm-hmm, yeah.
I think if you trace back, I think every single thing the older brother said, I think turned out to be true.
Yeah, I think I've told Chris that. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So his life was kind of defined by being the beta to his older brother's alpha. And so is it that he fell into the same pattern with Walter?
With Walter,
because Walter could push him around arbitrarily, and he seemed to go along with basically all of Walter's schemes. Is that right? To your point that he's not the Superman, he's like the Superman sidekick.
Well, I think his one-itis for Kim, I think, is a better indication of him being not the Superman. I honestly do not. I've got to go back and watch Breaking Bad because I honestly do not even remember enough about the relationship to analyze it in any real depth. Like I don't even remember Walt and Jesse as characters. Like when I saw Walt, I thought, was he really like that? I mean, I remember him being a little more reserved. I don't know. It just seems like I have to go back and watch it. Like I don't remember him like being that talkative.
At that stage in his life, he was. That was towards the end for Walt.
So
they said the goal all along was right. The goal all along was I forget what the term was, but it was to turn the nerd basically into Scarface. And then so by the final scene of Breaking Bad, he was full on Scarface.
Yeah. Okay.
Ordering murders and like doing all kinds of crazy.
Yeah. And so when they're in there, and then Walter says, so slipping. I love the way he says it. A slip and fall. So you were always like this. And is that so? It depends on the interpretation of the show. Was that telling us that this is just like it? So it's a more. I like my story because not just because it's non-Christian, but because it's it's complicated. It's like there is like you have to sort of squint and sort of understand like what's happened in depth to. I don't think Walter White he ever had an emotional attachment enough to Walter. Like, he has an emotional thing with it's a different kind of thing. Maybe Walter pushes him around. Maybe the cartel guys push him around, but they're fundamentally different from Chuck and then Kim. I mean, these are he. Like if Walter hated him, I don't think he would have been, crushed or anything like that. Well, with Chuck and Kim, it was like, but it's a love hate too. Like Chuck takes away Chuck's license and then drives him into suicide, basically. With Kim, if my theory is right, he wants to punish her by putting himself in. Like I thought he was going. Did you guys think it was going in the direction where like Jimmy was going to put Kim away? I thought that would have been really dark and really funny.
You were watching an even darker show than I think they intended.
yeah.
Richard, or maybe I just have a lighter side than I thought I did.
No, I thought that was what everyone would have thought. Like near the end, when he was like, I have something they'd be very interested in. You guys didn't think that?
No, Richard, I think Mark is right that you are so resistant to the story the show is intending to tell in this finale that you have just rejected the idea that it's even trying to tell that story.
No.
By the way, I think I might like your show even better than the one that I saw.
I think Vince Gilligan. I think they wrote my show. I think that is the show. No, I'm more confident about that. No, it was clear. It was clear you were supposed to think that because they're like, I remember he's talking to Oakley on the plane and he's talking in front of that Marshall, and then he's like, that's like, something. He says something like, "Oh, it's like of course." He goes, it's like why do you want to talk to them about this? Why? Like Kim is probably not going to be prosecuted. He goes, "Oh, it's really good ice cream." Obviously, the point was he was going to put her in jail for ice cream, not really ice cream, but just because revenge. That's clearly what we were supposed to do. You guys are watching this with rose-colored glasses. If you didn't think that's where I think that's what the show intended us to think would happen.
Yes, at that moment, but that was a misdirect because he said in the courtroom.
I agree. It was clearly a
courtroom that he only said all of that just to make sure that Kim actually came to the court, so that he could then redeem himself in front of her.
Now, why does that get Kim to the court exactly?
Oh, because she thinks that he might offer some kind of testimony implicating her in a crime. That's what he said he would do.
And so would her being in the court be the best way to stop that?
Well, at least to know what's said.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. She could.
It's a future of the rest of her life, right?
Yeah.
Man, I don't know. Look, he was in love, right?
He was. Yeah, he was. Of course, he was in love.
But deeply, like the one true love, like.
Yeah, it is a very. Yeah, it is. Yeah, I don't buy it. He just breaks good. He just breaks good and decides he'll make any sacrifice, and that's it.
Less bad. Yeah, that's a good point. Well, this goes to my point of the Christian arc, right? Which is, so after, what was it, a total of 11 seasons of Breaking Bad, the final twist had to be Breaking Good.
Yeah.
Again, I think now that you I think I would prefer the show that you're envisioning.
But you think that you're like Chris. You think I'm out to lunch here.
We're gonna need Vince to arbitrate this one.
Do you know Vince? We should send him this. I've always wanted.
I do not know Vince, but yes, when he discovers these videos, we'll have him on to. By the way, you guys almost nailed the ending. You almost nailed Saul's ending in your last episode.
Yeah. I was going to point that. I'm glad you pointed it out instead, because that's what I was thinking. I was like, we were pretty close, even with the color coming back at the end.
I would say 99% close.
Wait, I was looking for the color and I didn't see it. That the color.
You didn't see it? Oh, this ties into the whole thing we were just talking about the relationship between him and Kim. Go back and look at this. At the very end, in the final scene, it's very significant. When Kim comes in, she takes out the cigarette. When she lights her lighter, the flame is in color. And then when she lights the cigarette, the end of the cigarette is in color. And that's just kind of symbolize the relationship between them kind of coming back to life a little bit as they share the cigarette.
Oh,
that was good.
Huh. Did you see that? Did you see the color mark?
Nope, I did not notice.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Guys, you got to go check out that scene again. It's very significant that's the one tiny moment of color in that entire scene.
Was
The
it
whole
obvious?
post,
Are we idiots for having missed it, or was it like was it supposed to be obvious or not? Did you have to sort of watch very closely?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe you're just paying so much. It's pretty clear. I'm not making this up. Just go back and look
No,
at
I
it again.
believe
It's
you.
in color.
Incredible source.
Hmm?
Yeah. Okay. So the color. Yeah, I said he would be in jail just because I did it. I just said because everyone else is dead.
Well,
Everyone else is
also,
dead. We're happy
but also
about it.
that he would. They didn't quite show him as the ultimate jailhouse lawyer, but they clearly hinted in that direction. I think on the bus.
Well, why? Because they all the guys
The
started
inmates
chatting.
were freaking thrilled, man. They're like, I mean, this is like manna from heaven. You're going to Supermax prison, and you're the guy down the cell block is the lawyer, like the one
Yeah.
lawyer you've heard of. Like this is like the best thing ever.
Yeah.
So he's like the best lawyer / pastry chef that American Supermax prison has ever seen.
You guys know ADX is a real prison. I've read articles about this thing.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
got very-
Apparently, it's a real tough one, and like most of the guys there are put in solitary 23 hours
Here's
a day.
the guest list. Zacharias Musawi, the 20th hijacker from 9/11. Ramzi Youssef, that was the World Trade Center bombing in '94. Richard Reed, the shoe bomber, the guy who we take off our shoes for the rest of our lives. These are Saul's, these are cellmates now. But like a very long list of Arabic. Oh, Tsarnaev, the Boston bomber.
Is Kaczynski in there?
I don't know. Let me see. Eric Rudolph, you remember him? He was a pro-life terrorist, went around bombing abortion clinics. Robert Hansen, who spied for Russia, I think, or the Soviet Union over a 20-year period. El Chapo.
Oh,
Okay.
really? I was just watching him in Narcos Mexico.
Yeah, I wonder what's his relationship with the Salamancas. I wonder if they're rivals or allies or what.
They were too
this
small
suggests a new character arc. This suggests this is precisely the prison Saul wanted to end up in because these are by far the most interesting inmates.
This is the spinoff. This is the basis for the spinoff. I would watch this.
he's going to be top dog at that prison, or at least one of the top dogs. Nobody's going to mess with him. Everybody's going to like him.
With all the supervillains.
Wasn't let's see, Harold Nicholson, another espionage guy.
No relation.
Yeah. So yeah, very very cool. But are they all in solitary confinement or just the really bad ones? That sucks, man.
It's not complete solitary. From what I've read, most or at least a lot of the guys there, they're kept solitary for 23 hours a day. That's what I read about it.
Yeah, and he knows all this. Is the North Carolina facility with the golf course real?
I mean, there's a ton of places like that, I'm sure.
I think it is, right? Because that's what they always get criticized with white-collar criminals. They end up in a place like that.
Yeah. So why did so I liked seeing Hank's wife. I remember her. She was a fun and interesting character. I liked her. She was a kleptomaniac, right? She was a crazy woman. And I we saw her, she always had a flair for the dramatic, and I think why did Jimmy want her in the room then?
That's a good question. I was wondering.
I know. I got this one. He wanted to demonstrate to the government lawyers that he was going to be able to sway the jury.
That was one theory that I thought of too. Like he was like thinking, let me take the most hostile witness possible and show you that I can move her emotionally, at least a little bit, with the story I'm going to try on the jury.
Yeah, because they were watching her reaction and they were like, oh shit.
Yeah. But she still you're right. She still wanted them to throw the book at him.
She still hated him, but she just was just like, she was so like she was so flabbergasted. She was just in shock. Like she was just like, ah, fuck. I mean, you could see it on her face that she knew that he was gonna get either get off or get something super light.
But was this believable that he would the way he was taunting sort of the federal government has a lot of leverage over him. They have they have all this evidence. And it's like and he's like, oh, you don't want to lose your like he's humiliating this guy for everyone. That's a great record. And he's just like stringing them along, saying I want ice cream, blah blah blah. And it's just not believable. They would just fold. I would have thought that would have pissed them off, and they would have just kept going at him. I don't think you could string them along and try to embarrass them like that.
Well, you're the incentives guy. Like What's the defense incentive, right?
He has, he's got it. They've got an incentive to settle, right?
Isn't it the prosecutor's incentive? I mean, I try this on for size. The prosecutor's incentive is to have a 100% win rate so that when he can go into private practice, right, as a defense attorney with maximum leverage, negotiate his comp deal with.
Is it that easy though? Can the federal government, if you're just a little bit charismatic and you just need one juror, if you run into a guy with a 100% conviction rate, the federal government has all this stuff on you. You can basically get them to do whatever you want. Because if they get a mistrial, if one juror, I mean, they can try him again. I mean, it's the government. I mean, they do that.
Wait, how would they try them again? How would that not be double jeopardy?
Get a mistrial.
If you get a mistrial, he says, I only need one. Yeah, he says, I only need one. Well, that doesn't get you off.
Yeah, a guy I know actually went through that. He had a full federal criminal trial, he had a mistrial, and then they had a full second trial.
I guess I'm a little confused about how the criminal law works here. So, I mean, you can have mistrials for different reasons, right? So is it automatically a mistrial if one juror votes to acquit him and then double jeopardy doesn't apply and they can just go after him again? That doesn't seem right. One juror finds him innocent. He's innocent.
No, that's a hung jury. You get you went to Yale.
This is a really basic thing. I did not learn that much about criminal law.
Yeah. No, you will. You don't get off. You don't get off. You can. They can try you as many times as they want. I mean, if you're found innocent, if you're acquitted, yeah. But no, otherwise, they get another bite at the apple. And this guy, death of two federal agents. I mean, embarrassed. Embarrassed the government. Was on the run for a while. Was is known as this scumbag lawyer. Yeah, I think they would have wanted to get him. I don't think that especially that he was trying to personally humiliate the guy. And one thing I was hoping for, I was hoping they'd give us some sense of how famous Saul was at this point. I think the arrest must have brought him back into the news, and it must have been. The story is now much more interesting because when he first goes on the lam, he's not. We don't have Kim's confession. So now a journalist can find the entire story of Kim's confession, and they have Jimmy. And I was wondering if there was any sort of hint of he was going to get fame now, and he sort of liked that idea, or he didn't like it, or whatever, or if this could have factored into his motivations for wanting to claim he was helping Walter White run the drug empire. Was that his motivation? We don't know. I don't think we had enough of a sense of how big of a news story this, because they all recognize everyone. They're not all from Albuquerque, all those ADX guys, right? They all on the bus. They all seem to know Saul. So at this point, he must be so famous. He must be a household name. And I don't think that was true when he was in Omaha. I think that he became a household name between Omaha and the time he's being transferred to the Colorado prison.
So the production team, our friend Vince, who we don't know yet, the teaser for season 6 had a reward poster with a $5 million bounty.
Yeah, that actually confused a bunch of fans, I think. They clarified it later because a bunch of fans thought that in the universe of the show, there really was a $5 million bounty on him. But then somebody from the production team commented and was like, nope, that's just an advertisement thing for the show. No $5 million bounty in the universe of the show.
Very disappointing.
$5 million.
That guy doesn't have that kind of money.
Because that'd be a lot of money. That'd be a lot of money. I mean, that amount of money, that's implying that they want to pin everything on him, right? He's the survivor of the Fring white drug empire, and they're going to just
you would think they would. I mean, you would think they would, right? That's all they. I mean, they have the Fring and Walter White, and these are huge, larger than life figures, and they're going to give him 7 years in the most minimal security, and they have all the evidence. All the evidence. Just because he can get on the stand, and federal courts have ways to get around this. They can tell them you can only testify to things that are relevant. They can say this or that. I
thought it was pretty weak.
Yeah,
I thought it was weak in many ways. I mean, if I were the lawyer, I would have been okay, prove it. How are you going to prove it to the jury? Is there evidence? Can you find the grave that they dug for you? Is there any video of them kidnapping you? Is your only evidence your word? You're going to give your word to everybody that this all happened? And not only that, there's many other things. I mean, so you were afraid of Walt killing you, but Walt's dead now. and you want to use the duress defense, but the guy you're afraid of is dead. And, when you use the duress defense legally, I did read up on this part of the criminal law. You've got to argue that at the moment the danger to your life was past, you took the first opportunity to go to the law enforcement. And Saul doesn't have that argument.
There's a doctrine here. There's the duress defense, and they can instruct the jury and say Walter was dead. And does that go back and that change the? Does that change the state? If they can convict him on one thing, that's the way federal sort of sentencing works. Like it's like everything is like maximum of 50 years in prison. So like if they can get the jury to convict him on one thing of like all this crime, they basically got him. They got him for life or decades. And it's I think this was weak. I don't think there's a way to make this make sense. I think it was just sort of necessary for the twist.
Let me defend it. He didn't say this, I don't think, but he would have said, presumably in court, after Walter died, I was then afraid of the cartel. And of course, the Mexican drug cartels are a permanent bogeyman in the American imagination.
Yeah,
we didn't get any. I don't believe we got any insight into what happened to the cartel after Lalo and after everybody died.
Well, Gus, spoiler alert for Breaking Bad for those who haven't watched it, but Gus slaughtered them all, didn't he? Didn't he give them all poison? He killed them all.
But I don't think we ever found. And then Gus died, and I don't think we ever, because then Walter basically took over in the U.S. for that area, but for that region. But we never found out what happened, if anything else happened in Mexico.
Well, there would have been some cartel, but he would have had to prove, like, you can't just say cartels. He would have had to prove that there was somebody or something that he could, point to, this individual that did this, and he's got nothing. I think they had him. I really
they
think
know that Lalo's dead. They know Hector's dead. I think they know basically all the Salamancas are dead.
Well, I think they must have figured that. They must have figured that out.
And that Donaladio. So, are you guys are basically mounting an indictment here against against Vince Gilligan's view of the professionalism and competence of federal prosecutors? Is that?
Well, I think this was just one of those moments of a lack of realism that the show allows itself just for dramatic effect, because it excuses itself because they're like, look, the 7 years thing, that doesn't matter because he ends up in for 86 anyway. So it's just doing this to do a little exaggeration, and it's dramatically excused because he doesn't in fact end up serving only.
What if this is, going back to our conversation last week, what if this lesson here is just more contempt for the normies? He's like, oh, juries, right? You think they'll believe that? I only need one. Like, they're so stupid. Like, no matter how much evidence they have, like, this guy could just give him a little bit of a sob story, and he can get, one of them can get him off. Maybe it's just that, and the federal prosecutors understand. Well, juries, anyone has the least bit of charisma, who doesn't look like a complete ogre, he could sweet talk them and basically get off.
So, have either of you guys watched The Shield all the way to the end yet?
No, don't spoil, Mark. I'm only
no spoilers. Let's do a follow up to this when you guys both get to the end.
Okay.
And this is not a spoiler. No spoilers in any way. That I'll just say that show had probably the best ending of any show of the last 20 years.
People say that. A lot of people say that.
It is. I think that may be one of the challenges that shows like this have now. Is they may literally not know how to top that one.
Oh wow!
Anyway, Chris, so we'll come back to that down the road.
Chris, have you even started The Shield?
No. I've barely even heard that much about it.
Okay,
it is. I would nominate it. It's quite possibly the best of them all. And I say, it is really extraordinary. And I think it's bearing up. I think it's bearing up really well over time, precisely because you could never make it today. Like it was at that point where they could actually go for like the full story that they wanted to tell in a serialized TV format, kind of for the first time, and they didn't have any of the last 20 years of PC. So it's like that show's a laser beam.
So anyway, do you like it because there's a successful Ubermensch in it?
He is, again, I won't spoil. It is probably the most pure Nietzschean show that has yet been made. It and Deadwood, I would say, are neck and neck on that.
We should do Deadwood too. You've recommended Deadwood. I think
Deadwood is tremendous. Deadwood. The only problem with Deadwood is it got prematurely canceled. Although they finally did a follow-up movie to close it out.
Deadwood is the thing. It's in the West, right? There's some Western town.
Extraordinary. Yeah, it's the best. It's the best story of the American frontier that's ever been. Like, it's like the Shakespeare of the American frontier. It's just extraordinary. Yeah, you will love it.
Yeah, and okay. So Kim, okay. So yeah, I'll watch Deadwood. I like The Shield. I think it's almost too intense. I mean, there's some of the I think I'm 3 seasons in. It's almost
keep going.
It works. It's like a thing where it's like the ride is like, I don't know. I never have this reaction to a show actually, and it's a part of it is, you know what, it sort of numbs you because it's like, oh, they're in this impossible situation and like you see they're screwed and then they get out of it and like you see they have this other villain but you know what's going to happen, you know they're going to beat this villain and they're going to move on to the next. So it's sort of like that. It becomes you know, it's very fast and very cool, but like you're sort of like, it becomes a little bit repetitive. But I take your point. I will keep going, and I'll get to the end. But yeah, back to Saul. Kim's also was. I mean, I thought it was interesting that she was like trying to. Do you think she's trying to be like Jimmy's? Is she going to be Jimmy's lawyer? Is she going to like try to help him get out? I don't think she. See, this is the problem I think with your guys' theory. Is that like, is Kim happy? Oh, he redeemed himself. Oh, he got up. He gave a nice speech in court. Now he's going to be in solitary confinement next to the 9/11 hijackers, like for 80 years. Like, is that a good outcome for Kim? I don't think so. I think she would have rather. She defended him. Remember, she protected him with Howard's widow, right? She didn't want Jimmy to. She told him to turn yourself in, but she didn't want him. I don't think she wants him to suffer. So. Isn't this a problem with the theory that it's redemption? I mean, it seems like no. I do like the angle that it is so Kim can suffer. I think that has to be true.
I'm going to appeal once again to the colored flame and the colored end of the cigarette, which only I saw, but it's relevant evidence to the point of what the relationship is between Jimmy and Kim here, right? Like the color has been brought back in a small way.
Maybe the color is
lives together.
Yeah. Maybe the color is, maybe the color is she is. Maybe it's that they're themselves. Maybe it's just like they're themselves. Like he's not Gene anymore. He gets to be Saul, I guess, in prison. I don't know. I have to.
The color is the light streaming through the stained glass window in the cathedral.
Wait, what?
It's the light coming through. It's coming down in the center. Who's kneeling at the front of the church? Who's redeeming himself?
Okay.
It's a little bit of a stretch, but
yeah. Okay.
It's life coming back, right?
I think in the universe of the show, it's showing us that Kim has forgiven him to a degree, and they've reclaimed some version of their old relationship.
If you guys may or may not remember, it mirrored the very first shot of the two of them together in the very beginning of the show. In the first season.
Cigarette. Yeah. Oh, I think we got that.
The cigarette in the parking garage.
These were always the romantic moments for the most part throughout most of the show. This was how the show demonstrated that Jimmy and Kim were in love. It's funny. In most shows, it would have been holding hands or kissing or having sex or something.
Yeah.
The version of that in their relationship was sharing a cigarette together.
Yeah, there is not a lot of physical contact. It's like sort of striking when like Jimmy is hurt after he's in the desert with Mike, and like it's striking because there's so little of that sort of tender, and they have sex. We see them once, like they're getting off on the base of what was it, the sandpiper thing, and like screwing over Howard. Like they have sex because they're only out of like joy of their schemes like succeeding. You're right. It is sort of you're right. There's no lovey-doveyness. There's no tenderness there. I can't imagine Kim Wexler being into that either. Like there's something very what am I looking for? She's like her, I don't know, her method of showing affection. I don't know, some women are like this. I don't know what exactly it comes from, but you're right. That is like appropriate for her character, for the character she is in like every other context. How about that flashback to Mike, where they're what is that thing in the desert? Like, do they have just like pools of water laying in the desert?
Well, it's for like the cows or horses or something, I'd imagine, right?
Yeah,
That's just what I just imagined.
Being brought up by the windmill. The
Yeah.
windmill's powering the pump for the probably. That's probably what it is.
Yeah. And so you had that scene where, he asks Mike what you would do. And it's like very cliche at this point. We've seen this theme again and again where like you make a decision and one path versus another path. And so that, that brings their later conversation into context because Mike is, Mike is like explained to this to him before that like life takes you down one, you take a choice and then you make other choices, and then like Jimmy is just like he's like, oh, just money, that's all you would want to Jimmy. And I think when you take that and you take the Walt thing, it really, I mean, they are really, it's like this is all he, that's all he is. He's just a guy who wants money. He's slipping Jimmy according to Walt. And then at the end, the payoff here is he's redeemed and he becomes something else, or it's no, my theory. It's still him. It's still him. It's there. It's there. He wants to. I'm upset with you, Chris, for telling me the cigarette lit up. Now I'm trying to fit that into my theory, and it's actually difficult. I think Mark's,
in your theory, that's the beginning of the revenge plot paying off.
Yes,
now she's really in pain.
Now he tortures her. She comes, visits him. Like he keeps sabotaging the appeals. She's got great ideas. Like
for the next 86 years, he's just like, ha
ha. Yes, exactly.
You should never have left me.
Yeah, and so his reaction. Yeah, his reaction when they tell him about Kim, it's not like tenderness. It's not like reflection. It's not like I need to, win her back. It's like revenge. I mean, it wasn't as obvious of the revenge as we thought it would be, but it was still, I think, a form of revenge. I think his sort of demeanor and his his sort of just inherent reactions to the news about Kim is consistent with he just wanted to hurt her. He wanted to find a way to do that.
We need a much blacker genre of entertainment for you, which I would happily watch.
It wasn't dark enough for you.
We need some real bleak, dark. Yeah.
Is it that crazy?
We need Joker the television series. That's what we need. we need Joaquin Phoenix every week, just like rubbing our faces in it.
Joker, no, Joker is okay, but this is subtle and dark. I mean, that's what I love. Joker is like, oh, it's in your face. Oh no, all this bad stuff happens. It's so bad. But this is like
Taxi Driver of the series. We need Taxi Driver of the series. That's right.
Yeah.
Further Adventures of Travis Bickle.
You could try Hannibal, Richard. You might like the darkness of Hannibal better.
Cannibalism, I don't know. I have a disgust reflex. It's got to be.
And Mark, there's an Ubermensch who wins there for you in Hannibal.
Oh, you just spoiled. Why am I going to watch it now? You just spoiled it for me, Chris.
Well, because we know it's a prequel.
That's the premise of the entire Silence of the Lambs universe. Hannibal is the god there. He's the highest power, and he always wins.
Yeah, that's right. And it's a prequel series.
Okay, but what? Just explain to me what's crazy about my idea. Is it crazy that he'd want to hurt Kim? Is it crazy that this is a good way to do it? What's the flaw in the reasoning?
Well, let me ask you, Richard, on your theory of what the show was trying to do. He's trying to hurt Kim. Why does Kim go visit him and smoke with him, share the cigarette?
Oh, because she still loves him. She's hurt, and she still loves him, obviously. So it's he wants to hurt her. Yeah, maybe you're right. So you're right. When he tries to hurt her, he tries to hurt her in the dumb way with when she comes to sign the divorce papers. And I'm thinking like this is how he hurts her. Kim doesn't have to know that this is sort of the plot. So I guess I'm adding complexity here. So Kim is he is basically, he knows Kim. He knows she has compassion for him. He has to give a plausible story. He can't just say, screw off. I hate you, or I don't want to talk to you. It has to be like, I'm so pathetic now. Like my life sucks so bad. I'm in this hole for the rest of my life in Colorado. Colorado is closer to New Mexico than North Carolina is. And I'm going to make you watch this. And she cannot leave him alone because he's got nobody who's gonna come in there and visit him, and so it's not necessarily inconsistent. It's like I'm gonna hurt you, and I'm like gonna be one state over, and you're gonna come visit me because you're gonna feel so bad for me, and I'm so pathetic.
If that's what you need. The author is dead. I believe that. There's a theory. A lot of people who would say the author is dead. We can say that here if you would like.
Okay. All right. I think that. Well, Chris, you read like Reddit and stuff on this stuff. Am I the only one who's come up with this?
You're pretty much on an island here with your particular interpretation of what's going on between Jimmy and Kim.
Okay, just me and Vince. Me and Vince
yes,
together.
Just the two of you.
Not even Peter Gould knows what happened. It's just not even Rhea Seahorn. Just me and Vince have the true interpretation. I'm gonna start a Better Call Saul breakaway cult. I'm telling you.
Oh, and by the way, before we move on from the point a bit, you were talking about the flashback to Mike, and Jimmy brings up, or Saul brings up, whoever he is at that point brings up the time machine thing, and then again he asks Walt the same question, and it's kind of striking that Mike gives a deep answer, and then Saul gives his shallow answer, and then he kind of gives an even more shallow answer when he's talking to Walt. But I thought that there was more depth to that than it seemed.
What was the Walt answer on the time machine? What was that?
What he tells Walt is when Jimmy is like, "Oh, I would go back and I'd do that slip and fall stunt I did, so my knee wouldn't be hurt." To Mike he says, "I'd go back and use the time machine to get rich." To Walt he says, "I used the time machine to fix my bum knee." And it's kind of funny and shallow. But then when we see the scene with Chuck, and we see that Chuck was reading this book, The Time Machine, I think we're supposed to realize that, the real answer for Jimmy is that he would go back and he would not cause Chuck to die. And that's why he's thinking of the time machine in what seemed like his final moments, possibly when he's talking to Mike or when he's with Walt. He's thinking about his regrets. That's why he brings up the time machine. But then he just can't bring himself to actually open up and reveal that his real regret and the reason he's thinking about it is because he regrets what he did to Chuck.
Maybe. Yeah. Why is the time machine on his mind? Yeah, that's a good question. So my interpretation was he gives all these dumb and shallow answers because he is dumb and shallow, or he's not shallow. He's definitely not shallow. He has some depth to him, but he doesn't have self-awareness. Jimmy does not. I mean, I think that's right. It's like he has depth and he has complexity, but he doesn't really know why he does the things that he does. And so maybe this is consistent with it. It's a strange. It's like his go-to question, right? When he has time to spend with someone, he thinks, what's the where would you go back in history? I mean, it's the way, I don't know, the way he framed the question to Mike took it in that direction, though. He framed it like, oh, do you like ancient Rome, or do you like this or that? It looked like it was different. It didn't look like. Yeah, it didn't look like he was asking about how would you change your life, but I don't know. Maybe he knew Mike would go in that direction. I don't know. It's difficult.
It seemed to me like that was just his way of kind of easing Mike into the question, because they weren't especially close. It was a kind of personal question. So he introduced it, and then he put this kind of fun spin on it at first, like, "Oh, you like history, probably Civil War, ancient Rome." And I kind of laughed because I was like, "Man, those are the two."
Yeah, why does Mike?
Really interesting.
Mike looks like a history buff. By the way, was there what's the tell? It's just because he's an old white guy.
Yeah, I think it's just some unfortunate stereotyping.
Yeah. Okay. So. Yeah, and by the way, is Walter White's scientific understanding of the impossibility of time travel, is that correct? Do we have any physicists weighed in? He has very strong opinions on this.
Well, Newton would have never predicted quantum mechanics or Einsteinian relativity. So who can really be an expert on these things?
Yeah, Walter White did.
I don't know the exact details, but I've read that experts who think about this, they frequently like say, yeah, you can't go back, but you could have a time machine that takes you forward.
Is that what they say? Really?
Yeah,
It
but
has been
I
said.
don't know the physics well enough to
Yeah,
give
yeah.
my
I
account
don't
of
think,
it.
okay. I don't think
I mean,
there's a
look.
consensus.
Here's what I know: we live in a universe where we have quantum entanglement. We have, you can fiddle with a quantum something here, and 100 light years away it changes simultaneously. So like until we explain how that works exactly, right? I don't know that we should make any assumptions.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I like that Walter has an opinion. I don't know if it's true or false. As long as it's not obviously stupid, as long as it's a scientifically defensible take, I like that he has a take, and that's all I'm looking for. He doesn't have to be right. He just has to be. It just has to be defensible.
It is true to the character that he was far more offended by the implication that time travel might be real than by anything.
You know what? I love Walter. I want Walter to talk about politics. I want him to have political. I want to hear him have political and social views. I just think he would be the most right wing character I think on TV, wouldn't he?
Well, you could say this is one of the things that these shows did more than maybe better than almost any other show I think I've ever seen, which is they took the fact that Walter was a scientist really seriously.
Yes.
Right? He really was a scientist all the way through. And then they took the fact that Jimmy was a lawyer really seriously. Right? They got like way deeper. Like in the very beginning, when the first couple of seasons of the show, I was like, why are they spending all this time with his brother, who's this like super lawyer in the firm, and it's like they're spending all. And I like lawyer shows are fine, but I was just like, wow, there's a lot more lawyer stuff here. It's a lot more lawyer stuff here than I thought. A lot less drug stuff, at least to start. Yeah. And they took that. I think you made this point before, but they took the professions of these people who are super into the details of their work, right, incredibly seriously. That's really rare. Like there's so many shows that show an engineer or something, and he'll like do an engineering thing like one time, and then he'll just be like a normal person through the rest of it. And like on this show, it's just like, nope, we're gonna fully commit.
Yeah, it's a pretty distinctive thing about the Breaking Bad universe.
Yeah, they show men being into stuff. I mean, that's what I would say. It's like Gus with his wine. These. Walter with his meth. It just has to be the perfect meth. And you're right. They take their job seriously. Although Jimmy, I don't think he takes a lawyer. He takes being a con man seriously. I think Chuck and Howard are the real lawyers.
And
Chuck took the law.
And Kim, she's a lower tier than I think Chuck and Howard. I don't think she's as good of a lawyer as them, but she's good.
I think in the show, in the world of the show, we're meant to believe that Kim is viewed as a top tier lawyer. Everybody thinks she's top tier.
They think she's a grinder. They think she works very hard. But I remember that one scene where it was Mesa Verde, and like they were thinking about staying with HHM or going with Kim, and then Chuck just takes her to the woodshed. I mean, Chuck goes, "Oh, you want someone young, not us rotting old brains. Oh, we do stupid stuff like read the federal regulations for fun on a Friday night. No, you want someone young and fresh." And I think it was a way of saying like, "No, these are the big boys." And she's a grinder. She works hard. Her thing to sell to them is not that I'm the biggest genius. It's that like you're going to be my only client. That's how she sells herself to Mesa Verde. And yeah, she's good for a defense lawyer. I don't think defense lawyers are like the biggest, extracts the biggest brains in the legal industry. But I don't think she's supposed to be as good as Howard or Chuck. I think they're in a different level.
Well, she progresses throughout the show. By the end of her time in private practice, she's a partner. She's made partner at Rich's firm. So when she starts out at the beginning of the show, she's the young associate, the up and comer. But I think throughout the entire thing, we're told that the more experienced lawyers always say, "Oh, she's the rising star."
Well, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I don't think. I think that the way they show Chuck in particular, I mean, his sort of obsession with the law, the way he takes it seriously. I think Kim might have the brains to play with them, but you don't see nearly the passion and the drive for law that you see in Chuck. I don't buy it. I don't think so.
We can agree to disagree there, but the one moment that really sticks out to me is when they go out of their way to show Kim revealing to the prosecutor that her client had this misdemeanor or something in another state, and the prosecutor's like, "Why'd you tell me this? I wouldn't have found it out." And Kim's like, "It's my job. We're in discovery." We talked about this at the time, and from my point of view, that was an unnecessary moment meant to show you that Kim takes her job and her duties as a lawyer really seriously.
Yeah, there's two. I mean, there's two different things: taking your job seriously or being, the best lawyer in Albuquerque, right? I think she definitely takes it seriously, right? Does she? Is she a nerd about it? Is she an obsessive nerd about it the way Walter is about meth, or Jimmy is about scams, or Chuck and Howard are about the law? I don't think she's at that level. Everyone says, yeah, nice. She's a rising star. She's a nice looking young woman. Of course, they're gonna say like they're polite, and she's good. I don't think she's a bad lawyer. But no, well, anyways, that's us. Debating Kim's sort of legal ability is sort of besides the point. But yeah, the show does this. I think you're right, and I think this is one of the things that the small brains hate about the show, and one of all of us big brains that we really enjoy. Again, Walter takes being a scientist. That is so not current year, right? Today, what is being a scientist? It's like you hand wave at a few studies and then say the right words about oppression that's not fair to all scientists, but it's sort of like the public image of scientists now, right?
You're filling out grant applications, right? For there's a lot of right. The thing I love is he gets so offended by any sort of scientific misconception.
I've got to go back and watch this. Yes, I do remember this.
Really deeply offended, and he did that repeatedly through the series.
Yeah. And whenever he's dealing with these these knuckleheads, these young drug addicts around Jesse. Yeah, the contempt that he has for them is just hilarious. Like when one of Jesse's friends gets shot and killed, he calls him. He's like, "Oh, my friend, I forget what his name is." He's like, "Oh yeah, which one is he?" and then Jesse just hangs. You did not just say that, and he hangs up on him. That's one of the few scenes I do remember because it was so funny.
Combo.
It was fat guy. Yeah, was his name Combo?
Yeah, I think that's Combo.
There was an opening scene in one of them where he flashes a gun at the guy, and then he would tell him their names, and he would always repeat the names. He's like, "This is Splooge." He's like, "Splooge." Yeah. Crazy 8. He just doesn't see these people as human. It's hilarious. I fell back in love with Walter White. I forgot what was so great about the show, and I look forward to going back and watching it. How long ago? Do you guys remember all this stuff from you watched it at the time? It's completely gone from my memory.
It's been a long time since I've seen Breaking Bad. And there are a lot of nuances I forgot. Remember, I totally forgot what happened with the old lab of Frings.
Yeah. When did you watch it, Mark? You watched it when it was. You watched it at the time.
I watched it at the time, or towards the end. I think we watched the whole thing, but we caught up with it. But I did speed run through some of the previous seasons just to have a sense of what was going on.
Okay, so
as we got into the final stretch of Saul,
you refreshed. Yeah, I refreshed Saul recently. Yeah, and I have not seen Breaking Bad.
The war. I mean, for me, the war between Walter and Gus. That season was the peak. For me, that was the peak of the whole thing.
That was great. Yeah,
the full on war.
I think Gus aged poorly for Saul, because he was I don't know, he looked young and fit. He was much fatter. Am I remembering this correctly? He was much fatter in Better Call Saul, and he looks fatter and he looks older, and it just doesn't seem he's as spry as he seems in Breaking Bad. I think that's what made it great. He was Gus he was supposed to be an older Gus, but he was actually a young Gus. Maybe he lost weight later. That's the storyline. He got a second weight.
I think he especially gained some weight toward the end of Better Call Saul.
Yeah, it was noticeable. I remember what was striking about Gus was how real thin he was, and so it's this wiry guy who's always on speed. Not really, but he doesn't use drugs. I'm sure he's very meticulous, but he's naturally a guy on Adderall all the time. So of course he should be real thin, and so it sort of made sense. I like Mark's. Did you, Chris? Did you see Mark's theory that he's from Chile? They can't find information about him. He's probably some kind of, his dad. His dad is, a lot of Nazis ended up in Germany. I guess he would have had to find a black wife there. Not a lot of black people in Chile, but maybe it somehow worked out. He's actually, when we think about it, he's the biggest mystery of remaining from the we know all these other characters inside and out. We know everything about Jimmy. We know everything, I think, about Walt. And Kim is also a little bit of a mystery. Her past is a little bit of a mystery. It doesn't seem as interesting as Gus is. But we're left with, there's still a lot of like things I would like to know that we've never found out.
I think I said this before. I think Gus pretty much had to be like military intelligence in the whatever that regime was, because he brings a real skill set to this whole thing. So he was like, my theory. They alluded this a little bit, that he was like the child of a general or something, and then he's somehow along the way he knew how to run a paramilitary organization.
I can see that. Wait, so Mark, was Richard? Mark, were you saying that there's some connection between Gus and the Nazis? I wasn't really following that.
Richard once again is constructing an even darker and more interesting show, in which Gus's father was a escaped.
No, I asked. I think that was your idea.
SS, a childhood friend of Jason Stanley's.
For those listening to this like 3 days in the future, when like there's now a Twitter controversy over Jason Stanley Nazis, go to Twitter. Hopefully it'll still pop up on the search engine. There's been a big Jason Stanley Nazi. This will be released tomorrow, but those listening to the future, this might.
His father was one of the Nazis that Jason Stanley used to have dinner with back in the good old days.
What are you drinking there, Mark?
That is some Highland Park.
Oh, very
good Scotch. Very good Scotch.
Yeah. So I was asking because I was wondering about Gus, because this is how we got onto it, because he was German name, black guy from Chile. I mean, there's a story there. The Nazis make sense. Military, I guess he inherited the military. I don't know why he's black though. I don't think there are a lot of
black Nazis.
He was the black. There was a book. Wasn't there a book, The Black Nazis?
Look, I wouldn't be at all surprised if there were some black Nazis, but
apparently there was a few Germans. Yeah, there were a few black people in Germany, and they didn't have a category for them, so they just sort of left them alone. And there was a book. There's a book actually. If you look at there's like a black kid or two at like a Hitler rally, and they're just sort of, I guess, being Nazis. It didn't happen. There's a book on the Black Samurai, but some black guy ended up in Japan.
That was true though. There really was a black samurai.
The black Nazis also. Black Nazis also. I don't know if they were Nazis. They grew up in a Nazi Germany and were just part of the culture. So that's a nonfiction. That's also a nonfiction book. It's a real thing. So Chris, so you say you've been on the forums. What is there? Well, you guys can tell me your own reactions first. I mean, what is your emotional reaction? I'm okay. If I buy your Christian redemption story, I guess I'm not a Christian. I'm utilitarian. I guess sort of. And so it's tragic to me that for no greater good he's sitting in solitary confinement for 23 hours a day for the rest. I can't believe anyone would think this was hopeful. Well, why is it hopeful? Maybe Christians who, if you're a Christian who believes that there's inherent, value in suffering until the end of time, like, okay, for something you did in the past to make penance, but to me,
the true Christian view. But the true Christian view wouldn't even. I mean, and he was doing it for Kim. In my theory, in this theory, he's doing it for Kim. But the true Christian view, I think, right, would be he's really doing it for himself and for his relationship with God. So, to your argument, like whether or not it actually was something that Kim would have wanted him to do is kind of beside the point.
It's like he's okay. Well, it's not literally he believes in God all of a sudden. It's like he's being authentic somehow too.
Yeah, we're not allowed. I mean, a show in which he literally believes in God is on the Hallmark Channel, because we're not allowed to have those shows. Like those are way out of. Those are way
the
out
only
of
Christian characters I think are in the Breaking Bad universe. I think it's the Kettlemans. I think they're supposed to be the Christians, but even them, you do not get you don't see them praying or doing Bible. It's like they made Ned Flanders without actually ever referencing God. I thought that was funny. So that is a Christian redemption story.
But the theory is it's the secular. It's our current ethos, right? It's secularized Christianity. We're not allowed to call it a religion. Somehow we've stumbled into the same ethical code as Christianity. We just don't call it a religion, right? And so the same kind of script just keeps playing out. I mean, I said this last time. I thought the show was brilliant, but unfortunately, like all crime sagas of the last 70 years, including all the great ones, it is ultimately limited by the fact that we are only allowed to see, the sort of Nietzschean Superman in the degraded state, right? We're only allowed to see the bad guy version of it. We're never allowed to see the good guy version of it, right? We're never allowed to see the creator, the true creator version of it. And so I'll take what I can get. It's better than no Superman stories, but I still miss the genre that doesn't exist of the Superman who has towering achievements.
So I was pretty interested in that question you guys were talking about when I watched the podcast you did on it, and so I actually went back through a list of some of my favorite shows to try and find the ones that might come closest to this description of the regular old successful Ubermensch, whether bad or good. And so here are a few examples. One ongoing one, Peaky Blinders. I think the protagonist of Peaky Blinders is a pretty successful Ubermensch who's not particularly good, but it doesn't matter. He overcomes society's rules about good and evil. He creates his own rules. Another one, let's see, I think House could also be called, Dr. House. I think he could also be considered a kind of an amoral, kind of morally gray Ubermensch who's very successful and who isn't beaten down by life. There are a few others. And for the hopeful, benevolent, successful Ubermensch, I give you Doctor Who. Doctor Who basically is, he transcends all rules in his own universe, and he basically is God.
Okay.
He just happens to be a God who shares some of the same beliefs as the Christian God.
So, Mark, you want more, I thought when we last talked, you wanted more Nietzschean stories, but it sounds like you want more Christian stories too. You want both. Your complaint against Hollywood in our current moment is we don't get either one.
Yeah, let's say let's say what we get is a diluted or degraded or attenuated version. Yeah, exactly, of both. We get the dark side of this. We get the dark side of the Superman story, and we get it playing out through a degraded version of the Christian ethical code. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
And you think
it's both hallmarks of our degraded civilization.
So the what makes the Christian story here degraded is just because it doesn't literally have religion. That's what it has to have. It has to have literally.
He's not on his knees. Like, he should have been on his knees. I mean, for the full Christian version.
I see. Okay. Yeah.
He should have. Okay. He threw him. To the extent he threw himself on the quote unquote mercy of the court ish, whatever, or threw himself to the wolves, to the prosecutors. Like, he should have thrown himself to the mercy of God. Which, again, for the full version of the story. Like, if you're gonna do that, do that.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, these days you can't, right? I mean, that would just. I mean, can you imagine the reaction from today's critical community?
He finds Jesus, and he
finds Jesus.
So his cellmate, brings a Bible to jail, and he just slip into.
I mean, the only Christians allowed in this kind of fiction aimed at this kind of audience, right, are definitionally they're invariably hypocrites or idiots of some kind. You're never allowed to see the strong version.
Yeah. The kettle.
And by the way, I'm not representing myself as that either. I'm making more of a cultural observation.
Mm-hmm. What about Chris? What about your emotional reaction? So you're a philosopher. If someone is going to suffer for no, if someone's going to suffer and it's not going to help anyone else, is that something we should want?
Yeah. So you view it through the lens of total utilitarianism, basically. That's what you are, Richard. I was kind of smiling when you said, "Oh, I'm kind of a utilitarian." Because
I'm not. Oh no,
the most utilitarian person I know. You are just not utilitarian. That's what you are philosophically. And you think everybody else should be a total utilitarian too. You think Kant was some dumbass. But so from the perspective of a utilitarian,
okay, can I tell you something? I thought the way Walter went out was really cool. So I'm not a complete utilitarian. I like honor and I like these other things. I don't like the endless. But go ahead. Yeah, let me let you finish it.
I was, like I said at the beginning, I was pretty happy with the ending, and there is redemption, and it is, like Mark was saying, it is kind of an offshoot of the Christian notion of redemption. But here, Kim is taking the place of God. Kim is the higher power that he's trying to be forgiven by. And in my interpretation of things, which I'm pretty sure is the same as Vince Gilligan's interpretation, Kim does forgive him. And, there's this scene in the courtroom at the moment where Jimmy starts talking about what he did to Chuck. The camera angle shifts in a very interesting way that confused me at the time. The moment Jimmy starts talking about Chuck, it zooms out. It zooms out far, and it shows us everything for a long time with this exit sign. The exit sign.
I knew what that was. Yeah, go ahead.
The exit sign is prominently featured, and it's kind of buzzing. I think reminiscent of like Chuck's experience, his electromagnetism thing. But it's also framed so that Kim is right in the center of the exit sign the whole time. And I was trying to figure out what was going on with that artsy shot. And I think maybe what it was trying to tell us was that this was all for the benefit of Kim. He was talking about what he did to Chuck so that he would be redeemed in Kim's eyes. This is kind of like his exit strategy. That's his end game. And the camera was showing us from a distance Kim's reaction during this whole speech. That's how I'd interpret it. But to the question of whether it's happy, I'm happy because they're happy. So that maybe that's a utilitarian take on it. You say that, I'd say...
Is Jimmy happy? Is he making a... I don't know. Is he going to be happy?
I think this was the most plausible way that we could have had some rekindling of the relationship between Jimmy and Kim. And Jimmy, he has the choice. He has a clear choice, like, hey, I can do 7 years, then I'm out, and I can do whatever I want with the rest of my life. But I think he decides that he'll be happier if he's in prison the rest of his life, but Kim's still part of his life. So I think that Jimmy pursues the happiest ending he can imagine, which is finding a way to be with Kim again, at least sometimes. To like him again.
You know this term one-nightus?
Yeah, I've heard some people call it love.
Yes. Jimmy hasn't been reading up on his game.
Jimmy is he's got the worst case of one-itis I've ever seen in my life. He's going to he's going to Supermax prison, and the girls don't like it when you have one-itis. That's part of the thing. But here it's I'll buy Kim can be into it. I mean, Kim's getting up there. Come on, she's I don't believe it. I don't know. Something's not sitting right. I need the dark. Thank you, Chris, for going and turning your lights on. I was wondering why you were sitting there like a vampire. You were hearkening to the next show, the interview with the vampire that Peter Gould's going to be doing. I don't know. There's something I want there at least to be a case for my theory. I'm gonna find it. If somebody on the internet has found my idea, I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna get into this community, because I just think it's too nice, and it's not even logic. It's not it's not doesn't sit well with me. My understanding of sort of happy ending. I don't know. It's but you're right. That's that. I had like 10.99 seasons of like the kind of story that I and then I had 0.1 seasons with the Christian redemption. That's fine. That's
how dare the color come back?
That cigarette and the lighter, that you got to contend with that evidence, man. Got to come up with
I got to go back and watch it. Once I go back and watch it, maybe I'll have maybe I'll figure out some way to work it into my theory. This was fun, guys. I think this worked well. Is there anything else? Any other thoughts before we say goodbye to the Breaking Bad universe once and for all?
Well, I actually wanted to ask Mark a bit about this Ubermensch thing. So from that podcast, you were saying, so Mark, at one point you said that Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, they are the way they are. They have to show us a degraded Ubermensch. They aren't allowed to show us the successful, creative Ubermensch. Do you think that this is something generally true, and that there just aren't many stories out there with a successful Ubermensch? Like that there aren't.
I mean, not since the 60s, right? So yeah, not in many decades. Well, so here's one way to think about it. So we have all these stories of good versus evil. Who's always the guy with the plan?
Usually the bad guy.
it's always the bad guy. Right? In every modern narrative, it's always the bad guy with a plan. And so the good guy is actually, typically the good guy is kind of a lunkhead. I mean, Superman, the actual comic book character Superman, is kind of the full incarnation of this. Like Superman in the comics, he's kind of a lunkhead. Like he's not that smart. His answer to most things is to just stand there because he assumes that nothing can kill him. Right. And then he's just kind of trying. And then versus Lex Luthor, right? Who's this like, Machiavellian super genius, right? Who's got all the plans. And in fact, the Dark Knight, the best comic book movie of the last 30 years, the Dark Knight, they as the kids say, they lampshaded that idea because they had this whole thing where the Joker's whole thing was to basically prove to the world that plans are useless, right? That was like his whole thing, that basically the world is chaos and people should stop planning. But the irony of that was the Joker in the Dark Knight actually had this like incredibly elaborate plan. Right, he has all these like incredible schemes, right, where he like sets everything up and everything is all like super complicated. So even when the purpose of the movie in The Dark Knight was supposed to be an illustration of futility of plans, they still had it where the bad guy has all the plans, the good guy has. Bruce Wayne never has a plan; like he just reacts, right? And so this is basically like this is a lot of what I'm drawing my theory on, which is there are no, at least that I'm aware of, there are no narratives in which somebody is setting out to build something constructive, positive, wonderful, great, amazing, and whatever you want. The pyramids, the Ninth Symphony, by the way, the great tech company, right? There's no story in which somebody, the sort of positive version of the Superman sets out to do that and then succeeds in doing that. Right? That narrative that narrative is just simply absent. And of course, in kind of pre-Christianity, like that was basically the main narrative, if not the only narrative, right? And so this has been like a massive civilizational change to lose that narrative.
Mark, did you see Succession?
I did see Succession. Yeah, I mean they are. I mean, this will not spoil. They're shits. Like they're absolutely relentless shits. They're freaking awful. Like there's nobody. I mean, they're just absolutely terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, even Cousin Greg is just like a complete shit. Like the great part about we can spoil Succession.
Succession. As long as we give a spoiler alert, we're going to
spoiler alert.
Ahead a minute if you haven't seen Succession.
Even Cousin Greg. So, like, if they wanted to show a character, in Succession that was capable of coming to the light side, it would be Cousin Greg. Like he's set up to do that, and even he's a complete shit. And they did a really good job of him being a complete shit in the last season, where he finally achieves, the girl of his dreams in the season, Comfrey, the PR girl. And like, he immediately is like, okay, now how do I trade up? Right. So, right. So, which they did a very funny job of, but like, even he has to be a complete shit. And so, yeah, they're just not allowed. Like, again, we're not allowed. You cannot even envision the series in which the Succession characters are on the other side.
Well, is it an anti-capitalist thing? I mean, because I don't know. I've never seen The West Wing, but the way people talk about The West Wing, apparently it's like, government is doing these great things, and Madam Secretary. I think there are supposedly there are positive portrayals of top government officials, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, you get positive portrayals of the left all the time.
Yeah,
what you never get is a positive portrayal of a rightist. Right, and then the ultimate rightist is the Nietzschean Superman, right? The world of power.
Yeah, but
right?
it's not
the guy who builds the pyramids.
Yeah. They wouldn't call it left or yeah. They would. I mean, I guess we could call it left. It's government or like the activists, and the government never builds anything. It's not like I don't know. Maybe they do in the West Wing. Maybe they all make clean energy or something. I don't know. I've never seen the West Wing. I just know it's supposed to be a very idealistic sort of presentation about how politicians behave or how the president is. It's
the
right.
show where if you believe every single thing that Neera Tanden says, and take it at total face value, that's the show for you.
Well, we talked about did we talk about this? We talked about Silicon Valley, right? We said this is an exception. And it's funny exception because Mike Judge is actually conservative. I saw him he did an interview with Alex Jones once, and so you have this yeah, you're right. It is a political politics and the art, they sort of go together. It's like if you would portray that, you're not like a mainstream you're not a far leftist, you're not even a mainstream Democrat, right? There is sort of a worldview here that is very intertwined with what kind of art you create and you enjoy.
I mean, look, the obvious one is Atlas Shrugged. Like, where is the 8-season, 80-episode HBO series for Atlas Shrugged? Like, it's like this, like, incredible narrative with like, it would just be an incredible, vivid portrayal. And like, it's got all kinds of themes that are relevant to the current time. And it's impossible.
There was a movie, wasn't there?
There was a movie. So there was a movie, but it was made by it was a classic story. It was made by these right-wing filmmakers with these right-wing, with these sort of Kirk Cameron kind of tier actors on like 37 cents an hour of production value. Like they just can't. Right, and it was I haven't seen it. The critical consensus was that it was a joke because was
it supposed to have Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie? Did it have them?
No.
Was that supposed to happen? I remember there was supposed to be one.
That I want to see, but that does not exist.
Uh-huh.
Yet another in the Richard Hanania cinematic universe.
Exactly.
My cinematic universe is much cooler.
That one wins all the Oscars. But look, take your pick. If it's not Randy, take your pick of any other narrative like that. Like it just, maybe Silicon Valley a little bit.
So when you talked about this in your your other podcast, Mark, you brought up the examples of Alexander the Great and Napoleon, and you were like, these are real life Ubermenches who successfully built empires. Why don't we have shows about them? But what I thought was like, imagine that we did have shows about them, but imagine they were fictional characters. And then the show about Alexander would show him dying at 32, I think it was, and then his empire crumbling almost immediately after he dies. The show about Napoleon would show him being captured and sent to Elba, coming back, and then on Napoleon's comeback, he doesn't last 100 days before the Duke of Wellington defeats him at Waterloo. So we would show it realistically, and you might still call it a story of the degraded Ubermensch, because reality itself degraded their empires.
It's not the Superman's fault that the world lets him down.
So that's my point. Like even in your own examples of the Ubermenches, if we had those shows, and if we followed history and reality, they would fail.
Beethoven died deathly miserable, right? I mean, true life is what it is. The fact is, they were Nietzschean Superman. The fact is, they did accomplish great things. The fact is, we still talk about them today.
You could, not everything fails, right? You could imagine.
The pyramids are still standing. We still play Beethoven's Ninth Symphony.
What about the American? What if there was a thing on the American founders? I mean, is that almost too cliche?
Where is that? That's a really good. I've actually talked to people in Hollywood about that. I was like, look, you guys have this. You guys, it's the story of the founders. This is something I've thought about. The story of the American founders. It's always this like it's always old guys in wigs and like the whole thing. It's like the whole thing. The oil paintings, all like that. If you look up the age of the founding fathers in 1776, they were like rock star superhero. They were like in their 20s. The senior ones were like in their 30s. Like Thomas Jefferson was like 32 or 34. Alexander Hamilton was 25. Like these were aggressive, ambitious, hard driving, right? Like really capable young people, for the most part. Like Ben Franklin was like the elder statesman, but like the rest of them were like really, really young. And look, they fought a war. I mean, they fought a full-on rebellion. Like there's a much, much more vivid story of the American founding, right, than has ever been put to screen or even as far as I know, even in the form of literary fiction. And again, it's just like we can't. I mean, put it this way: like if we couldn't tell that story 30 years ago, we certainly can't tell that story today.
Mm-hmm. Does Andreessen Horowitz ever invest in movie studios?
Unfortunately, not. Actually, this is kind of an interesting thing. So the economics of the entertainment business have actually gotten worse in the last 10 years because of streaming. And so the uncapped upside that used to be present in both TV and in movies, where if you had a hit, like it could really run and you could really make a lot of money on it, like that's actually pretty much gone now. And so all these shows now from here on out are basically being made on a cost plus basis. And so, they're going to make a lot of content in the next 10 years. They're not going to shoot for the fences the same way they used to.
Yeah. So, I mean, like HBO might, right? There might be a handful each year.
Yeah.
Right?
There's a prestige thing every now and then, they'll do great. I mean, look, there'll be great stuff. It's just, you can't hit it out of the park. Financially, you can't hit it out of the park the way you used to be able to.
Yeah.
And so the incentive to switch.
Yeah. Well, I've heard that's why people stick with the franchises, right? Because you're just going to get the same people watching the same shows, and you don't have to take any big risks. There's some floor to what you're gonna earn. Do we need government? Do we need a bureau of culture then to fund the art that would otherwise get made?
I think maybe we need the opposite. I mean, and maybe I should be doing this, but we need like renegades, right? We need like, well, here would be a thing to do. Okay, so here's the thing: if you go back and read, so Hollywood has reinvented itself multiple times, and every time it does it, it's like this generation of renegades that basically figures out a new formula. And so maybe it's time for that. They would have to be able to do it on a small budget, but on the other hand, it is getting cheaper to do VFX. But like if you read the story, I think it's called the story. I think the book is called. I think it's called Pictures of the Revolution or something like that. There's a story of sort of the new Hollywood of the 1970s with like all these movies like Easy Rider and kind of all the movies, Butch Cassidy and all these movies that kind of reinvented Hollywood in the 70s. And a lot of them were made on a shoestring. And then it happened again in the early 90s with like Reservoir Dogs and kind of the indie movies at the time. And so you can imagine a movement like that. Except basically with the opposite ideological tilt, right? This time you'd want to do it from the right because the status quo is so far on the left, and so you would want stories of basically like high degrees of like aggressive, ambition, achievement, like a hardcore view of the world. Like it's possible. There's a guy Craig Zoller who does movies kind of like this. If you've seen Bone Tomahawk, is it Bone Tomahawk? And Dragged Across Concrete and Brawl in Cell Block 99. He does these kind of hardcore masculine right-wing movies. They're worth taking a look at if you haven't seen them. So there's like a glimmer out there that somebody could do this, but it's not really happening yet.
Yeah. Did you see The Northman, by the way?
What?
So I haven't seen it yet. I've heard great things, and it might be more of what we're talking about from what I've heard.
Yeah, I won't give it away. We did a podcast on it with Rob. I think it's interesting. I'll be interested to hear your take once you do watch it.
Yeah.
Well,
Chris,
the medium is still young. We only got the kind of prestige dramas. I think most people would point to The Sopranos as what really kicked off the era. And one thing I read in an interview with Vince Gilligan, he was saying that kind of what gave him the inspiration for Breaking Bad was that as a writer for many years on the X-Files and some other shows, he knew that one of the rules in the business was that you are not allowed to have your main character change. Their character is supposed to stay fixed. Whether the show is episodic or a serial drama, the character is not allowed to change. And then he said that he got the inspiration for Breaking Bad to defy that convention and show a character starting out, Walt starting out, as a nerd and becoming Scarface. And so one interesting thing about that is that really with Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, we are kind of seeing the very first shows that defy the Hollywood convention and show characters gradually changing over time. And so this is only the first effort at showing these new kinds of stories. And so I think there will be many other kinds of stories that present their own twists on this. And so the genre has a lot of room to grow.
Yeah.
Well, and I'll give you one other a technical observation, which is the cost of visual effects is dropping really fast, right? And the tools are about to become much better for VFX because they're going to start to use the Dolly style, like rendering. And so you're going to there's going to be a point. It's going to take a few years, but there's going to be a point in which a filmmaker is going to be able to type a description of a scene and the computer will render it for you, right? And so there's the potential for like visual storytelling at a much cheaper level. There's a movie that's worth watching on this front. It's a movie called. Look it up. It's a movie called, I think it's called Monsters of Man. Monsters of Man. It's a French guy who's works in the VFX industry. He shot basically a full-on 2-hour sort of Predator style, basically killer robots in the jungle, kind of action thriller. That's like quite good in terms of like its quality. He did 2,000 visual effects shots for this movie, and like it's for what it is, it's quite good. For a total budget of $2 million, right? Which is like and $2 million is a tenth the cost of like a typical indie movie with like no special effects, right? And so like this was like a significant advance in what's possible. And so maybe, to your point, maybe you have a narrative advance coupled with a technology advance, and then you get a new generation of filmmakers that can really can basically let their imaginations run wild because they won't need the $50 million budgets. And I think that might be what, and basically that's what happened. That's what happened in the new Hollywood of the 1970s, which is they made these super cheap movies. The fact that movies were so cheap to make is what made them, is actually unleashed them to do new things narratively. And then the same thing happened in the 90s. And so it's probably time for that to happen again, but this time with VFX.
Yeah, I think 10 years from now, the predecessor of Dolly 2 is going to be making whatever movies we want, really.
Yeah, it's going to get really good.
Yeah. Chris is a novelist, by the way. Maybe you could make it. Maybe you could put your novel into Dolly, and it'll make a movie for you.
Yeah, maybe. My brother and I are working on this novel about a post-apocalyptic America after a second Civil War. It's not the kind of thing that it's easy to get published these days, I think.
Well, I told you was serialize it on Substack, but you want a real publisher. Okay.
You know, Dickens serialized if it was good enough for him.
That's a good point. Okay, well, all right. This was fun. Anything else on Saul, Breaking Bad, Last Chance, or forever hold your peace?
I'll miss it.
Oh, I will also miss it. We've done 20 hours. Yeah, there's a hole in my heart now. I'm gonna go look around other shows, and maybe it'll be filled by Deadwood, but the odds of finding something that is you're gonna watch sort of contemporaneously with everyone else. That's only a few times in your life that's gonna happen, and I'll be looking forward to the next one. So, all right, guys, it was a lot of fun, and maybe we'll do this again.
Good talking to you guys.